A Match Made in Rome, a psychological horror story. In the city of Rome, there were two rich families. One family was called the Valentines, and the other was the Lucians. Both families were powerful and respected. They lived in big, beautiful houses and had many servants. Lucia was the daughter of the Valentines. She was beautiful and kind. Marcus was the son of the Lucians. He was strong and brave. One day, their parents decided that Lucia and Marcus should get married. This marriage would make both families even more powerful. At first, Lucia and Marcus did not like this idea. They did not know each other well and came from rival families. But they agreed because it was their duty. Their families held a big feast to celebrate the engagement. There was music, dancing, and lots of delicious food. During the feast, Lucia and Marcus sat together. They tried to talk and get to know each other. They were polite and smiled, but inside they felt nervous and unsure. They looked around at the happy faces of their families and wished they could feel the same. As the night went on, Lucia began to feel a little more comfortable. Marcus seemed kind and interesting. She started to think that maybe this marriage would not be so bad after all. Marcus also began to see Lucia as more than just the daughter of his family's rival. He admired her grace and intelligence. The feast ended with a big toast to the future of Lucia and Marcus. Everyone was happy and hopeful. Lucia and Marcus looked at each other and smiled, feeling a small spark of hope in their hearts. The world around them seemed perfect, but little did they know their journey was just beginning. A few days after the feast, Lucia was walking in the garden. She saw Marcus talking with one of his friends. They did not see her. Lucia decided to hide behind a tree and listen. Marcus's friend said, "Are you sure this marriage is a good idea? Your family and her family have been enemies for a long time." Marcus replied, "We have to do this. My father says it is important for our family." Lucia felt a sting in her heart. Did Marcus really want to marry her, or was he only doing it for his family? She could not stop thinking about his words, "We have to do this." That night, Lucia could not sleep. She kept hearing Marcus's voice in her head. What did he mean? Why was it so important for his family? She began to feel unsure and worried. The next morning, Lucia tried to act normal. She smiled at Marcus and talked with him, but inside, she felt different. She started to watch him closely, looking for more signs. She wondered if he had a secret reason for marrying her. One day, while Marcus was out, Lucia went to his room. She looked around carefully, searching for clues. She found a small box under his bed. Inside the box were letters from Marcus's father. The letters talked about plans for the future and how the marriage would help their family. Lucia's heart sank. She felt like Marcus was hiding something big from her. She did not know what to do. She decided to keep quiet for now and watch him even more closely. Lucia's mind was full of questions. She started to doubt everything. The happy moments they had shared seemed less real. She wondered if Marcus was pretending to care for her. This small event planted a seed of distrust in Lucia's heart. She could not shake off the feeling that something was wrong. The world that once seemed perfect now felt uncertain and scary. Lucia could not stop thinking about the letters. Every day, she thought about Marcus's words and the letters from his father. She became obsessed with finding out the truth. Lucia started to follow Marcus everywhere. She watched him when he talked to people. She listened to his conversations. She looked at his letters and his things. She was looking for more clues, more signs of the secret. One night, Marcus went to a meeting with his family. Lucia followed him secretly. She hid behind a wall and listened. She heard Marcus's father say, "We need to make sure Lucia trusts us. The marriage must happen." Lucia felt a cold shiver. Why did they need her to trust them? What were they planning? She did not know, but she was determined to find out. Lucia began to ask Marcus strange questions. She wanted to see his reactions. "Why is our marriage so important to your family?" she asked one day. Marcus looked surprised. "It's important for both our families, Lucia," he said. "It will bring peace and power." But Lucia was not satisfied with his answer. She kept asking questions, trying to catch him in a lie. She watched his face, his eyes, looking for any hint of deception. Every night, Lucia lay awake, thinking about Marcus and his family. She imagined all kinds of terrible secrets they might be hiding. Her mind was full of dark thoughts and fears. Lucia's obsession grew stronger every day. She stopped talking to her friends. She stopped enjoying her hobbies. All she could think about was Marcus and his secret. Her family noticed her change. They asked her if something was wrong, but Lucia said she was fine. She did not want them to worry or to stop her from finding the truth. Lucia's world became smaller and darker. The happy moments she had with Marcus seemed like a dream. She could not trust him. She could not trust anyone. Her obsession with the unanswered question took over her life. Lucia's obsession grew stronger. She became more and more paranoid. She believed Marcus and his family were hiding a big secret. She felt they were always watching her, waiting for her to make a mistake. Lucia stopped talking to everyone, even her family. She did not trust anyone. She spent most of her time alone in her room, thinking and worrying. She avoided Marcus, afraid he might see through her. Lucia began to imagine things. She thought she saw shadows following her. She heard whispers in the night, even when no one was there. She felt like she was losing her mind, but she could not stop herself. One day, Lucia found a locked box in Marcus's study. She was sure it held important secrets. She tried to open it, but could not find the key. She searched the whole house, but the key was nowhere to be found. Lucia's mind was full of dark thoughts. She imagined the worst. She thought Marcus was planning something terrible. She could not sleep, eat, or think about anything else. She became pale and thin, and her eyes were always wide with fear. Marcus noticed Lucia's change. He tried to talk to her, but she pushed him away. "Leave me alone," she shouted one day, tears in her eyes. "I know you're hiding something." Marcus was confused and hurt. He did not understand why Lucia was acting this way. He tried to comfort her, but she would not let him. Lucia was trapped in her own mind, and no one could help her. Lucia's isolation grew worse. She stopped leaving her room. She stopped talking to everyone. She was alone with her fears and doubts. Her paranoia controlled her life. The once idyllic world was now a dark and lonely place for Lucia. She could not trust Marcus, her family, or even herself. The seed of doubt had grown into a monstrous tree, casting a dark shadow over everything. Lucia's paranoia grew worse. She started to see strange things. One night, she looked out her window and saw a dark figure in the garden. The figure looked at her with glowing eyes. Lucia screamed and ran to her bed, hiding under the covers. The next day, she asked the servants if they saw anyone in the garden. They said no, but Lucia did not believe them. She thought they were lying to protect Marcus. Lucia began to hear whispers in the night. The whispers called her name and told her terrible things. She tried to cover her ears, but the whispers did not stop. They filled her mind with fear. One day, Lucia was walking in the garden. She saw Marcus talking to his father. Suddenly, their faces changed. They looked like monsters with sharp teeth and red eyes. Lucia gasped and closed her eyes. When she opened them, their faces were normal again. Lucia was terrified. She did not know what was real anymore. She saw shadows moving in the corners of her room. She heard footsteps behind her, but when she turned around, no one was there. Lucia's visions became more and more disturbing. She saw blood on the walls and heard screams in the night. She dreamed of Marcus holding a knife, coming towards her with a cruel smile. Lucia tried to tell her family, but they did not believe her. They thought she was imagining things. "You are just tired," her mother said. "You need to rest." But Lucia could not rest. The visions haunted her day and night. She felt like she was living in a nightmare. She could not escape the dark and twisted images in her mind. Lucia became more isolated. She stopped leaving her room altogether. She did not trust anyone and did not want to see anyone. Her world was filled with fear and darkness. The once idyllic world was now a terrifying place for Lucia. She was trapped in a web of paranoia and visions, unable to find peace. The shadows in her mind were growing stronger, and she did not know how to fight them. Lucia's fears and visions were getting worse. She felt like she was losing her mind. One day, a close family servant named Antonia came to her room. Antonia was always kind to Lucia and seemed to care about her. "Lucia," Antonia said softly, "I believe you. I know something is wrong." Lucia felt a glimmer of hope. "You do?" she asked. "What do you know?" Antonia leaned closer. "I have seen Marcus and his father talking in secret. They are planning something bad. I am sure of it." Lucia's heart raced. "What should I do?" Antonia whispered. "You must be careful. Do not trust them. I will help you find out the truth." Lucia felt relieved to have someone on her side. She started to trust Antonia more and more. Antonia gave her advice and told her what to do. "Watch them closely," Antonia said. "They will make a mistake, and we will catch them." Lucia did what Antonia said. She watched Marcus and his father even more closely. She followed Antonia's advice, feeling like she was getting closer to the truth. But Antonia had her own plans. She was secretly trying to make Lucia more paranoid. She wanted Lucia to believe in the worst. Antonia told Lucia stories about other people who had been betrayed by their families. "Be careful, Lucia," Antonia would say. "They are always watching you." Lucia's mind was full of fear and doubt. She believed everything Antonia said. She stopped trusting everyone else completely. She thought Antonia was her only friend. Antonia's manipulation worked. Lucia became more isolated and paranoid. She stopped eating and sleeping well. She was always on edge, always afraid. The once idyllic world was now a place of fear and manipulation for Lucia. She did not know that Antonia was influencing her thoughts and actions. She felt alone and trapped, with no one to trust but the very person who was making her fears worse. One night, Lucia could not sleep. She decided to sneak into Marcus's study again. She found the locked box, and this time, she had a hairpin to open it. Her hands shook as she unlocked the box. Inside, she found more letters. These letters were even more secretive. They talked about plans to control the Valentine family. Marcus's father wrote about using the marriage to gain power over Lucia's family. Lucia's heart pounded. She felt sick. It was worse than she imagined. Marcus and his father were planning to take over her family's wealth and power. They were using her as a pawn in their game. Lucia ran to Antonia and showed her the letters. "You were right," she cried. "They are planning something terrible." Antonia read the letters and nodded. "We must stop them," she said, "but we need proof." Lucia felt desperate. She did not know what to do. She felt betrayed and alone. She thought about running away, but she knew it would not solve anything. The next day, Lucia confronted Marcus. "I found your letters," she said, her voice trembling. "I know your plan." Marcus looked shocked. "What letters? What plan?" Lucia held up the letters. "These, your father's letters. You are trying to take over my family." Marcus took the letters and read them. His face turned pale. "These are not from my father," he said. "These are fake." Lucia did not believe him. "You are lying," Marcus shook his head. "Lucia, I swear, I love you. I would never hurt you or your family." But Lucia was too afraid and angry to listen. She ran back to her room, her mind spinning. She felt like the world was falling apart. That night, Lucia had a terrible dream. She saw Marcus and his father standing over her, laughing. She felt trapped and powerless. She woke up crying and shaking. The once idyllic world was now a dark place of betrayal and fear for Lucia. She believed she had found the truth, but it was even darker and more twisted than she had imagined. She did not know who to trust or what to do next. Lucia sat in her room, thinking about what to do. She felt lost and scared. She had two choices. She could run away and leave everything behind, or she could confront Marcus and his father again, trying to save her family. If she ran away, she would be free, but her family might be in danger. If she stayed and fought, she might be able to protect her family, but it was very risky. She did not know if she was strong enough to face them. Lucia thought about her family and how much she loved them. She did not want them to suffer because of her. She also thought about Marcus. Part of her still wanted to believe him, but the fear and doubt were too strong. Finally, Lucia made a decision. She would stay and try to stop Marcus and his father. She could not run away and leave her family in danger. She had to be brave. Lucia went to her parents and showed them the letters. She told them everything she knew. Her parents were shocked and angry. They promised to help her and protect the family. Together, they planned to confront Marcus and his father. They gathered all the evidence they could find and prepared for a big meeting. The next day, they called Marcus and his father to a meeting. Lucia's heart was pounding as she faced them. "We know what you are planning," she said, holding up the letters. "You cannot take over our family." Marcus's father looked angry, but Marcus looked sad. "Lucia, please listen," Marcus said. "These letters are not real. Someone is trying to trick us." Lucia shook her head. "I don't believe you. You have to leave and never come back." Marcus's father started to argue, but Lucia's father stepped in. "Leave our home," he said firmly. "We will not be part of your plans." Marcus and his father left, but Lucia felt no relief. She still had doubts and fears. She did not know if she had made the right decision. The once idyllic world was now full of uncertainty and danger. Lucia had faced her moral dilemma and made her choice. She hoped it would protect her family, but she knew the future was still uncertain. She had taken a stand, but the shadows in her mind still lingered. After Marcus and his father left, things were quiet for a while. Lucia tried to go back to her normal life, but it was hard. She still felt scared and alone. She still saw shadows and heard whispers at night. One evening, Lucia was in the garden. She saw a letter on the ground. It was from Marcus. Her hands shook as she opened it. The letter said, "I love you, Lucia. I will prove my innocence. Please wait for me." Lucia's heart ached. She wanted to believe Marcus, but the fear and doubt were still there. She did not know if she could trust him. She did not know what to do. That night, Lucia had a strange dream. She saw Marcus standing at the edge of a dark forest. He was holding out his hand, asking her to come with him. The forest was scary and full of shadows, but Marcus's eyes were kind. Lucia woke up, unsure of what the dream meant. She felt torn between her love for Marcus and her fear of his possible betrayal. She did not know if she was making the right choices or if she was falling deeper into her fears. The next day, Lucia received another letter. This time, it was from Antonia. The letter said, "Be careful, Lucia. There are still secrets you don't know. Trust no one." Lucia's mind was full of questions. Who could she trust? What was the truth? She felt like she was standing at the edge of a dark forest. Just like in her dream, she had to decide whether to step into the unknown or stay in her fearful world. The story ends with Lucia holding the letters, standing in her garden as the sun sets. The shadows grow longer, and the whispers seem to get louder. Lucia looks at the dark forest beyond her home, wondering if she will find the truth or lose herself completely. The reader is left wondering if Lucia has managed to escape her spiral of fear and doubt, or if she has fallen even deeper into it. The once idyllic world is now full of uncertainty, and Lucia's fate hangs in the balance.